The Mercedes W15 feels like a car for the first time in 2 years. That is something that has now been recently spoken about from Toto Wolff in the media, talking about simulator times and what has been reported on the car. But there's a lot more major things going on over there for Mercedes that is really big for them to step up into 2024 with their W15 car. There's 3 things that I want to go over. But right before I go into it, wanted to thank you guys. We hit 15K. Unreal. Thank you so much for support. If you're new here, go ahead, like and subscribe. It would mean the world for me. We're pushing hard in 2024. It's going to be an action-packed February, and from then on, we're just going on. So thank you so much for support. Let's get into another W15 video before the famous reveal. So obviously this car's been talked about a lot in the season, but there's 3 things, and I've let it seep in the information to really talk about the concept of this car, what Toto Wolff is talking about, and James Allison as well, and the drivers, both George and Lewis. First thing I want to talk about was the statement that I made in the beginning of the video. Feels like a car for the first time in 2 years. Now this, to me, automatically reading it, I had an idea of what Toto was talking about and what the drivers were talking about. So, you know how they've been with the whole cockpit position and the issues they've been having with the car. Obviously, they're going to feel a certain way about the W13 and the W14, but I understand what they're saying. When he says it feels like a car, they talk about really stability within the car, and in the simulator, how predictable the car has been. This has been a car that's had a lot of issues on its predictability, specifically in the rear end of the car from it being a no side pod design. The whole rear end, the gearbox, it's all getting changed for 2024, and their simulator driver, Anthony Davison, states that it feels like a car for the first time. He said he was driving it in Melbourne. Melbourne's pretty much got everything. It's got your slow speed, it's got medium speed, and it's definitely got some high speed corners. But to be able to be good there, you gotta be a stable car. They were actually pretty good there. This year, I think the tire wear definitely helped them out. The stability in the W14 was pretty good on specific tracks, but all around that base layout for the car was not that good. So he says, obviously, I would love this to correlate to the track, but we've seen in the last few years that is not always the case. And he makes a good point, but with a new technical director of James Allison and switching out the issues they had with the simulator, it does seem like this should be what we get on the jump. We will not know till qualifying and practice. I know this. I'm speaking about what's being talked about here and what are the efforts that's going in from Mercedes. It's big time talk, and as he talks about, you can't think in a way that you cannot start the season by winning the championship. And I love his mentality. This is something that I always liked about Toto. I think something that he has above his other competitors. He's always thinking win, win, win. And that's the Max Verstappen mindset. It's the Lewis Hamilton mindset. If you're not first, you're last. So they got to go in with this. They always talk about the McLaren jump, and it is something big to be talked about. They made that huge jump. It did take them a little bit longer than winter, but they made a huge jump, and that really put them in the game. So yes, 2023 was such a season where really the team was lacking overall in upgrades, but as well as they just failed on that no side pod design, and Red Bull was so much more ahead, not only because of the lack of upgrades, but their car was super behind, and it made the Red Bull stand out to others. Yes, the RB19 is a superior car to the others, but that is due to the help of Mercedes and Ferrari failing in that year. Aston Martin and McLaren caught up because of the failures of the other 2 teams. Are they good teams, McLaren and Aston Martin? Yes, but let's see how they step up in 2024. I would love to say Fernando Alonso is going to be your 2024 championship. That to me would mean the world. But it's a hard reality to grasp my mind over when you have these big teams that have been doing it for such a long period of time. So it makes sense to go in with that mentality. Toto Wolff reveals Mercedes improvements ahead of the new F1 season. These are big things to talk about. So the first thing I want to start off with is increasing the personnel over there at the factory from 1,500 to 1,900. That is the goal that they have set in mind. Now that is 400 people. You have to bring in people with a collective mindset that want to work super hard towards a goal. And in Formula 1, if you don't work as a team, you can't win. Regardless of who's your driver, Max Verstappen can drive in that Haas all he wants. He will not win a single race unless literally everybody crashes out. A championship doesn't even need to be spoken into existence. That Haas team falls apart consistently. But with a team like Red Bull, where the pit stops, everything is just collectively there. The strategy, the director, everything. Mercedes is a team that's got a lot of it. But pit stops has been an issue. They're bringing in new equipment. Apparently they're saying their equipment is old. I think it's more to do with the training and being able to put those tires on correctly at the right times. They used to go with the mentality because they were so fast that a 3-second pit stop or a 2-second pit stop, it won't make a difference as long as we get it on. They said consistency is key, not making the mistakes. But that isn't necessarily the key. It is a big difference for 1 second. Sometimes that's what you're trailing to go for the undercut. You got to get the right pit stop, and a 2-second pit stop is mandatory for the driver to get in front, especially with dirty air catching cars. It's super important that they're on it for these pit stops. Mercedes has not been on it for pretty much the past 5-6 years. They've just been a bullet, and that has saved them for the most part. But overall talks of changing this is a great thing for the team and great signs of moving up. But another thing that I really liked in what is being spoken about here, and it's not about the title chances, but overall the team's development, how their consistency and what they've done in 2022 and 2023 was more conservative than what they wanted to. In 22 and in 23, their upgrades weren't as significant as they wanted them to be, but they also didn't bring as many parts. AlphaTauri was the team that brought the most parts in 2023 with about 50-something upgrades. That is nothing short of what we will see in 2024. I think 24 and 25 for every single team will be a huge year when it comes to upgrades, because what you bring to this car will pretty much be your 2025 car, with a couple of things that they will change. From 25 to 26, it's going to be a big regulation change, so that step up will always be difficult for teams to bring in so many parts. But 24, this is where you got to capitalize. This will be the car that you are trying to bring into that 2025 season as a title contender again. So that's why evolutionizing the car like Red Bull has been doing has been really working well for them. But for them to have that mentality, obviously every team is thinking that way, but I like that he's saying that it was conservative, because I had that same approach thinking about Mercedes. I thought that the upgrades they were bringing to the 2022 car, the no side pod design, that was a failure for them. They were talking about that car like it was so fast, but very little was done to actually upgrade that car. Very little body work was done. Yes, they brought a couple of floors, but neither floor really made them stand out. It was the porpoising design that really screwed them over, but he says we should have been more aggressive there to actually step up on that failure. Last thing to talk about is the concept, as I talked about, and what states in the title. Mercedes F1 Technical Director James Allison explains how the 2024 W15 car will look different to its previous challengers. So in this article, what he states and what he talks about is something that I have talked about a lot in the season. I've spoken about how a designer looks at a car. It's not necessarily, when you look at concept, you don't think of just the bodywork of the car. You think of more in general. He says, from the front to the back, this car is a complete mistake. A concept to a designer is knowing what's bad and what's good. To most people, this would be the no side pod, and that is something that he even outlines and says it was a part of our failings in 2022 and 2023. He mainly outlines that because in 22 and in 23, that transition period from 22 to 23, they were very indecisive on what they wanted because George Russell won a race in 2022. So it made them think, oh, is the car fast enough? Is this the right design? Are we going down the right path? So going into 23, they actually met their marks. They were 7/10 quicker in Bahrain from their past car, but they were like 8/10 off of Red Bull. So they missed their marks completely on a more spectacular car. And that is where the aggressive mindset and that mythology around what their concept will have to be definingly different for the car, but also that weight distribution, as I talked about for the base of the car, will be much different. We're going to get the cockpit position that Hamilton will be very happy with, and the upgrades coming to the side of the car. Side pods, as I said, were a failure in many things, compromising that engine, compromising the rear of the car so that the engine was fitting perfectly. So many things that Allison says this was a mistake from our end to really continue it into 2023. So this gives us an idea of what we should be expecting from the Mercedes squad. Super excited. They announced their February 14th date. You know, on that date, about 2 or 3 hours later, I'm going to be analyzing the whole entire car. Same goes with every other team. Excited for that, to talk about it and everything that we need to know for this W15, because this is pretty much what we're getting. Hopefully there's some leaked pictures. I'll definitely be talking about it if we get that. And speaking about the car design and really the team in general. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like, subscribe, it'd mean the world, and peace.